The fluorescent lights above table 12 flickered with a dying hum that matched the exhaustion pulsing through my temples. I pressed my fingers against the laminated menu in my apron pocket. A nervous habit I'd developed over 3 years of serving overpriced pasta to people who never looked me in the eye. The restaurant, Castellanos, occupied a corner of the financial district where glass towers reflected clouds and ambition in equal measure. I was neither. "Emma, table 9 needs water," Marco hissed from behind the bar, his accent thick with irritation. He'd been short with me all week, ever since I'd asked for an advance on my paycheck to cover my daughter's medication. Sophia's asthma had been getting worse with the autumn air, and the inhalers weren't cheap, but Marco didn't care about that. Nobody did. I grabbed the pitcher, my reflection fragmenting across its metal surface. 26 years old, and already wearing the kind of tiredness that settles into your bones. My uniform was crisp, at least. I'd learned early that looking presentable was the only armor I had in a world that measured worth in designer labels and inherited wealth. The dining room hummed with the particular frequency of money, quiet conversations about mergers, vacation homes in the Hamptons, which charity gala would photograph best. I was a ghost among them, refilling glasses and clearing plates, my existence noted only when something went wrong. Table 9 sat in the corner booth, the one we reserved for VIPs, though I'd never been told who decided what made someone important enough. I approached with the water pitcher, my eyes trained on the table's edge, a safety mechanism I'd perfected. Don't make eye contact. Don't engage beyond pleasantries. Don't give them any reason to remember you. But I noticed him anyway. How could I not? His suit was charcoal gray, so dark it absorbed light, tailored with the kind of precision that whispered obscene amounts of money. The fabric moved like water when he shifted, and I caught the glint of platinum cufflinks. Simple, elegant, lethal in their understatement. His cologne reached me first. Cedar and something darker, like smoke from expensive cigars mixed with bergamot. It was the smell of power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. 2 men flanked him, their bulk barely contained in matching black suits. They weren't eating. Their eyes swept the room in coordinated patterns, and I noticed the subtle bulge under the left one's jacket. My stomach tightened. I'd seen men like this before, back when I was waitressing in Brooklyn near the social clubs where my father used to drink away his unemployment checks. "Water," I murmured, reaching for the first glass. "Actually," a voice cut through my focus, smooth and cold as lake ice, "we'll start with the 2015 Barolo, the Soretto." I finally looked up. His face was all sharp angles and shadows, like something carved from marble by an artist who understood violence. Dark hair swept back from a high forehead, silver threading through the temples in a way that suggested distinguished rather than old. 40, maybe 42. But it was his eyes that trapped me, nearly black, assessing me with the kind of attention that made my skin prickle. He wasn't looking at me like I was invisible. He was looking at me like I was a problem he was calculating how to solve. "Of course," I managed, setting down the water pitcher with hands that wanted to shake. "I'll get your server." "You're not our server." His eyebrow lifted slightly, and I caught the faintest hint of an accent underneath the polished American English, Italian maybe, or something more Eastern. I was bringing water. Michael is your... Then you bring the wine." It wasn't a question. The men beside him remained perfectly still, but I felt the weight of their attention shift to me like crosshairs finding their target. "Yes, sir." I turned before he could see the flush creeping up my neck. The wine cellar was climate-controlled perfection, all dark wood and soft lighting. I found the Barolo, $340 a bottle, and cradled it like I was holding evidence of a crime. My hands trembled as I gathered the glasses. This wasn't my section. This wasn't my job. But men like that didn't make requests. They issued commands disguised as preferences. When I returned, a 4th man had joined the table, younger, maybe 30, with slicked back hair and a nervous energy that contrasted sharply with the other's stillness. He was talking rapidly in Italian, gesturing with his hands. "Dimitri vuole sapere quando..." The man in the charcoal suit raised one finger. Just one. The younger man's mouth snapped shut mid-word. I approached, the wine bottle feeling heavier with each step. The restaurant had gone quieter somehow. Or maybe it was just my imagination. I showed him the label, my hands steady through sheer force of will. He barely glanced at it. Open it. I worked the corkscrew with practiced efficiency, hyper-aware of his eyes tracking each movement. The cork released with a soft pop that sounded too loud in my ears. I poured the customary taste into his glass, the wine catching the candlelight like liquid rubies. He lifted it, swirled, inhaled. The ritual felt like a test I didn't understand. Then he drank, and something in his expression shifted, a crack in the marble, gone so fast I might have imagined it. Acceptable. He gestured to the others' glasses. As I poured, the younger man resumed talking, this time in what sounded like Russian. I concentrated on not spilling, on keeping my breathing even, on being forgettable. Problema s поставкой, если мне... My hand slipped, just slightly. A single drop of wine hit the pristine white tablecloth, spreading like blood across fabric. The temperature in the room plummeted. I'm so sorry, I whispered, reaching for my towel. I'll get club soda, it won't stain, Stop. The command froze me mid-reach. The man in the charcoal suit was staring at me now, really staring. His eyes narrowed in a way that made my pulse hammer against my ribs. You understood him. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. My throat closed. The younger man had stopped talking entirely. Even the bodyguards had stiffened, their hands drifting toward their jackets. No, I was just... The wine slipped, I'm sorry. You flinched. He leaned forward, and I caught another wave of that cologne, mixed now with something more primal, the scent of danger, when he mentioned the supply problem. You understood the Russian. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet were rooted to the expensive carpet, my hands still clutching the wine bottle like a shield. I don't know what you... Italian? He switched languages smoothly, his accent now unmistakably Tuscan. Parli Italiano. My silence was answer enough. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that made me think of sharks circling in dark water. Fascinating. A waitress in a place like this. What else are you hiding, I wonder? I need to get club soda for the tablecloth. I tried again, my voice barely audible. Sit down. I'm working, I can't... Dante. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even look away from me, but one of the bodyguards was suddenly there, pulling out the chair beside him. It wasn't a request. My legs folded beneath me before my brain could process the command. I sat, the wine bottle still in my hands, my heart trying to break through my ribcage. Up close, I could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The way his jaw was set with the kind of tension that spoke of violence held carefully in check. What's your name? He asked, still in Italian. Emma. My voice cracked. Emma Rossi. Rossi. He tasted the name, rolled it around like the wine. Italian father? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. And the Russian? Where did you learn it? I swallowed hard. My mother. She was from Moscow. She taught me before she passed. Condolences. The word was perfunctory, empty of real sympathy. What other languages do you speak, Emma Rossi? The question felt like a trap. Every answer was a door opening onto something I couldn't see, couldn't prepare for. But lying seemed more dangerous than the truth. French. Spanish. Some German. A little Mandarin. His eyebrows rose fractionally. A little Mandarin. How unexpected. For a waitress. The word dripped with condescension, and something hot flared in my chest beneath the fear. My mother believed education was the one thing no one could take from you. Wise woman. He gestured to the younger man, who immediately produced a sleek phone. Tell me, Emma, are you happy here? Serving water to people who don't see you? I'm grateful for the job. The rehearsed answer came automatically. That's not what I asked. He was typing something on the phone now, his fingers moving with swift precision. You're educated, multilingual, working for minimum wage plus tips that barely cover, what, rent, medical bills? Ice flooded my veins. How do you... I make it my business to know things. He slid the phone back to the younger man without breaking eye contact with me. You have a daughter, Sophia, 4 years old, asthma. Father unknown on the birth certificate. The restaurant spun around me. You need to leave her out of this. This? His head tilted. There is no this yet, Emma. Just a conversation. But there could be. I don't understand. No, I don't imagine you do. He lifted his wine glass again, studying me over the rim. Tell me about Sophia's father. My hands clenched around the wine bottle. That's none of your business. Perhaps. Perhaps not. He set down the glass. Did you know he worked for me 4 years ago? Before you got pregnant. Before he stole from me and disappeared. The world stopped spinning. It simply stopped. That's not... But even as I formed the denial, pieces were clicking together. The way Jake had always had cash when he claimed to be between jobs. The phones that kept changing. The night he'd come home with blood on his shirt and wouldn't explain. The morning I'd woken up to find him gone. Our meager savings account emptied, and a positive pregnancy test on the bathroom counter. His name was Jake Morrison. The man continued, his voice as casual as if discussing the weather. At least that's what he called himself. He stole $200,000 from a shipment and vanished. I've been looking for him for quite some time. I don't know where he is. The words tumbled out, desperate. I haven't seen him since before Sophia was born. I swear I don't know anything. I believe you. He stood abruptly, and I flinched. He noticed. Something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, maybe, or something darker. But that creates an interesting situation, doesn't it? Please, I whispered, and I hated how broken I sounded. Please, my daughter, she's innocent in all this. Of course she is. He buttoned his suit jacket with deliberate precision. Which is why I'm going to make you a proposition, Emma Rossi. You're going to come work for me. What? You need money. I need someone with your particular skill set. It's a simple transaction. What kind of work? But I already knew. Had known the moment I'd seen the guns, smelled the danger. Translation. Interpretation. Nothing that will endanger you or your daughter. In fact, he reached into his jacket, and I stopped breathing until he produced a business card. Thick stock with embossed lettering. You'll find I'm quite protective of my assets. The card read simply, Lorenzo Vitale with a phone number below. And if I say no? I managed. His smile returned, colder this time. Then you continue working here, continue struggling, continue watching your daughter suffer because you can't afford proper medical care. Or... He leaned down, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You could accept that your daughter's father's debts have consequences, and those consequences can be managed, or not. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise wrapped in silk and darkness. I need to think, I said, though we both knew it was a lie. There was no choice here. There had never been a choice. You have until tomorrow. He straightened, adjusted his cufflinks. Dante will give you the address. Be there at 9 a.m. Don't be late. He walked away then, his bodyguards falling into formation around him. The restaurant seemed to exhale, noise and life returning in a rush. I sat frozen in the chair, the business card burning against my palm like a brand. Marco appeared, his face red. What the hell was that? You can't just sit with customers. I'm done for the night, I heard myself say. I stood on legs that didn't feel like mine, set the wine bottle on the table with careful precision. I quit. You can't just... Emma! But I was already moving toward the employee entrance, my hands shaking so hard I could barely untie my apron. In the changing room, I stared at the card again. Lorenzo Vitale. The name meant nothing to me, but the weight of it, the weight of everything it implied, crushed the air from my lungs. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The car outside is yours. It will take you home safely. Tomorrow, we discuss how to secure Sophia's future. LV. I looked out the small window. A black Mercedes with tinted windows idled at the curb. Illegal parking be damned. I thought about Sophia, about the inhaler that was almost empty, about the eviction notice tucked under my mattress. I thought about Jake, wherever he was, and the debt he'd left me without knowing. And I thought about Lorenzo Vitale's eyes. Dark and calculating and utterly without mercy. I picked up my bag and walked toward the car, each step feeling like falling into an abyss with no bottom. The driver opened the door without a word. The interior smelled like leather and that same dangerous cologne. I climbed inside, and the door closed behind me with the soft final click of a cage locking shut. The morning light filtered through my apartment's single window like an interrogation lamp, harsh and unforgiving. I'd been awake for hours, watching Sophia sleep in the bed we shared, her small chest rising and falling with the wheezing rhythm that had become the soundtrack of my anxiety. The inhaler on the nightstand was nearly empty. 3 days left, maybe 4 if I rationed it carefully. After that, I didn't let myself finish the thought. The business card sat on the chipped kitchen counter where I'd left it at 2 a.m. after staring at it for 3 hours. Lorenzo Vitale. I'd made the mistake of Googling the name around midnight. The results were carefully curated. A few mentions in business journals, photographs from charity galas, a brief Wikipedia entry listing him as a private investor and philanthropist. Nothing about organized crime. Nothing about violence. Nothing that explained the guns or the fear that had radiated from every person in that restaurant when he'd spoken. But the photos told a different story. In each one, he stood slightly apart from the crowd, his expression polite but distant, his eyes scanning the room even as he smiled for the camera. In one image from a museum fundraiser, I'd zoomed in on his reflection in a glass case. His face had been completely different when he thought no one was watching, cold, calculating, dangerous. I'd also searched for Jake Morrison. Nothing. Like he'd never existed at all. At 8:15, I woke Sophia gently, her dark curls, so like her father's, spreading across the pillow. "Mama," she murmured, her voice rough with sleep and congestion. "Morning, baby." I pressed my lips to her forehead, checking for fever. Normal, thank God. "Mrs. Chen is going to watch you today, okay?" "Don't want to go to Mrs. Chen's. Smells like old lady." She wrinkled her nose, and despite everything, I smiled. "Be nice. She makes those sesame cookies you love." Our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was 73 and charged me almost nothing for babysitting, claiming she enjoyed the company. I suspected she simply recognized desperation when she saw it. When I dropped Sophia off 20 minutes later, the old woman took one look at my face and pulled me aside. "You in trouble?" she asked in Mandarin, her gnarled fingers gripping my arm with surprising strength. "No. Maybe. I don't know." I switched to her language without thinking, the tones flowing automatically. "I got a new job offer, better pay. But it's complicated." "Complicated how?" Her eyes narrowed. "Not the kind of complicated that brings police, I hope." "I hope not too." I kissed Sophia's head one more time, breathing in her baby shampoo scent like it might be the last time. "If I'm not back by 6, you'll be back." Mrs. Chen's voice was firm. "You're a survivor, Emma. I see it in you. Whatever this is, you'll survive it." I wanted to believe her. The address Dante had texted me led to a building in Tribeca that made my apartment complex look like a homeless shelter. All glass and steel and the kind of modern architecture that whispered exclusivity. A doorman in a uniform nicer than anything I owned opened the door before I could reach for it. "Ms. Rossi?" He didn't wait for confirmation. "Top floor. You're expected." The elevator was mirrored on all sides, forcing me to confront my reflection from every angle. I'd worn my only professional outfit, a navy dress I'd bought at a thrift store for a job interview 2 years ago that had gone nowhere. My hair was pulled back in a neat bun, my makeup minimal. I looked like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that could have been featured in a magazine spread about obscene wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River, the morning sun turning the water into molten gold. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics, everything in shades of cream and charcoal and the deep brown of aged whiskey. Lorenzo Vitale stood with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. "Non mi interessa cosa dice Salvatore. Se non può gestire Milano, troverò qualcuno che può." He paused, listening. "Bene, assicurati che capisca le conseguenze." "I don't care what Salvatore says. If he can't handle Milan, I'll find someone who can. Make sure he understands the consequences. He ended the call and turned, and I was struck again by the sheer presence of him. In the restaurant's dim lighting, he'd been intimidating. Here, in the harsh morning sun, he was something else entirely, a predator so perfectly adapted to his environment that you forgot to be afraid until it was too late. Emma. He said my name like he was tasting it. Punctual. I appreciate that. You didn't give me much choice. One corner of his mouth lifted. No. I suppose I didn't. Coffee? Sure. I didn't know what else to say. He moved to an espresso machine that probably cost more than my annual salary, his movements efficient and practiced. Cappuccino? Espresso? Americano? Americano is fine. Predictable. But he made it anyway, the machine hissing and gurgling. Sit. I perched on the edge of a white sofa that felt like sitting on a cloud, my hands folded in my lap. He brought me the coffee in a cup so delicate I was afraid to touch it, then settled into the chair across from me, ankle crossed over knee, completely at ease. You didn't sleep, he observed. Would you have? Probably not. He sipped his own espresso, his eyes never leaving my face. Let me be clear about what I'm offering, Emma. I need someone who can translate and interpret for various business meetings. Conversations with associates in Europe, Asia, South America. Sometimes in person, sometimes via phone or video call. The pay is $60,000 a year to start, with benefits including full health insurance for you and Sophia. $60,000. I made $18,000 waitressing. The number was so absurd I almost laughed. What's the catch? Direct. I like that. He set down his cup with a soft click. The catch, as you put it, is discretion. Absolute, uncompromising discretion. You will hear things, business discussions, negotiations, occasionally disputes. Nothing you hear leaves this penthouse or whatever room you're working in. Nothing gets shared with friends, family, police, journalists, or your diary. You become a vault. And if I accidentally let something slip? I met his eyes, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. Then we would have a very different kind of conversation. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. But I don't think you will. You're smart enough to understand what's at stake. My daughter. Among other things. He stood, walked to the window, hands in his pockets. The sunlight caught the silver in his hair. Jake Morrison stole from me, Emma. $200,000 might not seem like much to some people, but it's not about the money. It's about the principle. About what happens when someone thinks they can betray me and simply disappear. My coffee cup rattled against its saucer. I told you, I don't know where he is. I know. I've had people looking into you since last night. Quite thoroughly, in fact. He turned back to face me. You really haven't had any contact with him. The bastard left you pregnant and penniless. Rather cowardly, even by the standards of thieves. The casual way he said it, like Jake's abandonment was just another data point, made something hot and bitter rise in my throat. So if you know I can't help you find him, why am I really here? Because his daughter exists, his blood. Lorenzo's expression hardened. In my world, debts pass down through generations. His theft created a void that must be filled. Horror flooded through me, cold and complete. You want me to pay back $200,000? I don't have that kind of... No. He crossed back to me in 3 long strides, and suddenly he was too close, looming over me, his cologne wrapping around me like smoke. I want something worth far more than money, Emma. I want loyalty. Your absolute, unquestioning loyalty. You work for me. You answer to me. You and your daughter become part of my protection, which means you also become my responsibility. And in return, he pulled something from his pocket, a small white envelope. Your debts become manageable. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check made out to Sophia's pediatric specialist. $15,000, the exact amount I owed for her treatments. How did you... I told you. I make it my business to know things. He returned to his chair, that calculating gaze pinning me in place. That's a signing bonus. Consider it a demonstration of my investment in your success. Sophia gets the best medical care available. You get a salary that allows you to move out of that studio apartment in a building that should have been condemned years ago. And I get someone I can trust. You don't even know me. How can you trust? Because you have everything to lose. Simple, brutal, true. That makes you reliable in a way money never could. You'll protect yourself by protecting my interests. It's elegant, really. I stared at the check, at the number that represented Sophia breathing easier, sleeping through the night, living a normal life. I thought about Mrs. Chen's words. Survivor, whatever this is, you'll survive it. What's my first assignment? I heard myself ask. Lorenzo's smile was pure satisfaction. This evening, dinner meeting with representatives from a shipping company based in Marseille. They speak French and limited English. You'll interpret, ensure nothing is lost in translation. Dante will bring you something appropriate to wear. I can dress myself. Not for where we're going, you can't. He stood, clearly considering the conversation finished. The dinner is at 8 p.m. Dante will collect you at 7:15. Don't bring your daughter. I wasn't planning to bring a 4-year-old to a business dinner. Good. We understand each other. He walked toward a door I assumed led to an office or bedroom. Then he paused, looking back over his shoulder. Emma? Welcome to the family. The word family sat heavy in the air like a threat dressed in silk. Dante appeared from somewhere, a hallway I hadn't noticed, holding a garment bag and a shoebox. He was the younger man from the restaurant, and up close I could see the nervous energy that animated him, the way his eyes darted around even in the safety of Lorenzo's home. Miss Rossi, he said in accented English. For tonight. Boss says it should fit. If not, tell me now. I get different size. I took the bag numbly. Thank you. You speak Russian, yes. He switched languages abruptly, and I realized it was a test. Yes, I replied in the same language, though I'm more fluent in Italian and French. He grinned, some of the nervousness fading. Boss says you're smart. Good. Last translator was... He made a cutting motion across his throat. Not smart. You be smart. You live long time. I didn't know if he was joking. Back in the elevator, I clutched the garment bag and the check like lifelines. Or chains. I couldn't decide which. The doorman held open the door, and I stepped out into the morning air that suddenly felt too thin, like I was breathing at altitude. A black SUV sat at the curb. The driver's window rolled down, revealing one of Lorenzo's bodyguards from last night. Get in. I take you home. I can take the subway. Boss says you ride with me. His English was heavily accented. Russian, I thought, is not request. I climbed into the back seat, the leather cool against my legs. As we pulled into traffic, I noticed another SUV fall in behind us. Protection, I realized. Or surveillance, maybe both. At my building, the driver waited while I climbed the 5 flights. The elevator had been broken for 2 months. When I looked out my window, both SUVs were still there, idling. I was being watched, protected, imprisoned. The garment bag contained a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Midnight blue silk that felt like water against my skin, with a neckline that was elegant rather than provocative. The shoes were Louboutin, the red soles like drops of blood. Everything fit perfectly, because of course Lorenzo had known my exact measurements. The thought made my skin crawl. I picked up Sophia early from Mrs. Chen's, unable to stand being away from her a moment longer than necessary. We spent the afternoon in the park, and I watched her chase pigeons with the breathless laughter of a child who didn't know her mother had just sold her soul. Mama, why you look sad? She asked, climbing into my lap on the bench. I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking. About what? About how I was going to keep you safe in a world that had suddenly become infinitely more dangerous. About whether the cage I'd walked into had room for both of us, or just me. About how much I love you, I said instead, squeezing her tight. At 7:15 exactly, there was a knock on my door. Dante stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable in the shabby surroundings, 2 more bodyguards flanking him. You look good, he said, eyeing the dress. Very professional. Boss will approve. I'm so glad, I said. acid in my voice. Sophia peered around my legs. "Who's that, Mama?" "Just someone from work, baby." I knelt down, smoothing her curls. "Be good for Mrs. Chen. I'll be home late. Will you bring me a cookie? If I can." I kissed her forehead, memorizing the feel of her skin, the smell of her hair. In the SUV, a different one, even more luxurious, Dante briefed me on the evening ahead. "The French, they test you. They insult in their language, see if you translate accurately, or if you lie to make things sound better. You translate exactly what they say. Boss needs to know what they really think." "Even if it's offensive?" "Especially if it's offensive." He handed me a tablet. "These are the names and photos. Memorize them. Boss hates when people get confused." I studied the faces. 3 men, middle-aged, prosperous-looking, the kind who wore their wealth and power casually, like a second skin. The restaurant was in Manhattan's meatpacking district, the kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. A single door marked only with a number. A host who greeted Dante by name. A private room in the back where Lorenzo was already seated. He looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe, or possession. He stood, that automatic courtesy at odds with everything else about him. "Emma, you look presentable." "Thank you, I think." His lip twitched. Then the French delegation arrived, and the performance began. I stood slightly behind Lorenzo's chair, my hands folded, my face professionally blank as they exchanged pleasantries. When they switched to French, testing as Dante had warned, I leaned close to Lorenzo's ear and translated in a whisper. "He's saying your reputation precedes you, and not in a complimentary way." Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened fractionally around his wine glass. "Tell him I'm flattered he's done his research." I relayed it in French, and the men laughed, surprised. The dinner progressed. A verbal chess match disguised as business negotiation. They discussed shipping routes and container fees and insurance requirements. But underneath was a current of threat and counter-threat, power plays wrapped in diplomatic language. I translated every word, every nuance, feeling like a conduit for violence. At one point, the eldest Frenchman said something that made the others chuckle. I hesitated. "What did he say?" Lorenzo's voice was quiet, dangerous. I leaned close again, my lips nearly touching his ear. "He said you're young to have so much power. That usually men in your position are either very smart or very lucky. He's trying to decide which you are." Lorenzo smiled, his hand suddenly on my wrist, holding me in place beside him. "Tell him I'm both, and that underestimating me is how his competitor in Marseille ended up losing his shipping license." The threat was delivered with perfect courtesy, wrapped in the language of business, but everyone at the table understood. The Frenchman's smile became fixed. "Your translator is quite skilled." "She's invaluable," Lorenzo said, and his grip on my wrist tightened fractionally. A warning or a claim. I couldn't tell which. By the time dinner ended, terms had been agreed upon, hands shaken, farewells exchanged. The French left with tight smiles and the wary respect of men who'd realized they were outmatched. Lorenzo leaned back in his chair, wineglass in hand, studying me. "You did well. I just translated what they said." "You did more than that. You caught the implications, the insults buried in compliments. That's worth far more than simple translation." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "Come, we're not finished for the evening. I need to get home. My daughter is perfectly safe with Mrs. Chen, who has 2 of my men stationed outside her apartment for protection." He said it so casually, like placing armed guards outside an elderly woman's home was perfectly normal. "You and I need to discuss the real nature of your employment." My stomach dropped. I thought we already did that. That was the public version. Now we discussed the truth. He led me out through a back entrance where the SUV was already waiting. As we climbed in, I realized this wasn't one of the regular vehicles. This one had additional modifications: reinforced doors, tinted windows so dark I couldn't see out, a privacy screen between us and the driver. We were completely alone. Lorenzo poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a built-in bar, handed me one. Drink. You look like you need it. I did. The liquid burned down my throat. False courage in a glass. Jake Morrison, Lorenzo began, swirling his own whiskey, didn't just steal money from me, Emma. He stole something far more valuable, information. About my operations, my contacts, my weaknesses. And then he sold that information to my enemies before disappearing. The world tilted. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. But his daughter carries his blood, and in my world, that means she carries his debt. He turned to face me fully, his eyes black in the dim light of the vehicle. I could kill you both. It would be justified, expected even. But I find myself reluctant. Curious, perhaps. About what? I whispered. About whether loyalty can be created through necessity, whether you'll prove to be more valuable alive than dead. He reached out, his fingers catching my chin, tilting my face up to his. His touch was gentle, but there was steel underneath. You're going to pay your daughter's father's debt, Emma. Every penny, in service and obedience. And when it's paid, if it's paid, perhaps I'll let you go. And if I refuse? If I run? His thumb traced my jawline, and I shivered despite myself. Then you'll learn exactly how far my reach extends. There is nowhere you could go that I wouldn't find you. No life you could build that I couldn't destroy. He released me abruptly. But you won't run. Because you're smart. And because despite everything, you know I'm offering you something no one else can. Safety. For you and Sophia. The SUV stopped. I looked out to see we were back at Lorenzo's building. What? Why are we here? Because, he said, opening the door, I've decided you'll live here, starting tonight. Absolutely not. The words came out sharper than I intended, fueled by panic and the whiskey burning in my stomach. I have a daughter. I can't just. Sophia will have her own room. Mrs. Chen can visit during the day to help with childcare. You'll both be comfortable here. Lorenzo stepped out of the SUV, expecting me to follow. When I didn't move, he leaned back in, his patience clearly thinning. This isn't a negotiation, Emma. As of tonight, you and your daughter are under my protection. That means you live where I can ensure your safety. You mean where you can control us. Semantics. He extended his hand. Come. I'll show you the accommodations. I didn't take his hand. I climbed out on my own, my Louboutins clicking against the pavement like a countdown. The doorman held the entrance open, with the same blank expression as this morning. How was that only this morning? It felt like a lifetime had passed. The elevator ride was silent. Lorenzo stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the floor numbers climb, while I pressed myself against the opposite wall, trying to maintain some illusion of space between us. But the mirrored walls reflected him from every angle, making escape impossible even visually. You're afraid of me, he observed as we neared the top floor. Shouldn't I be? Perhaps. But fear alone is exhausting. Eventually, you'll need to decide if you're going to spend every moment terrified or if you're going to adapt. The elevator opened. I prefer employees who adapt. The penthouse looked different at night. The floor-to-ceiling windows now reflected the room back at us, the city lights beyond creating a galaxy of possibility that we were sealed away from. Lorenzo moved through the space with the confidence of ownership, flipping switches that brought lamps to life in warm pools. Your room is this way. He led me down a hallway I hadn't noticed this morning, past closed doors that could have hidden anything. The room he showed me was larger than my entire apartment. A king bed with crisp white linens, a sitting area with a view of the river, an ensuite bathroom done in marble and gold fixtures. Sophia's room is adjacent. He opened a connecting door to reveal a child's paradise, a smaller bed with a canopy, shelves waiting to be filled with toys, walls painted a soft lavender. Mrs. Chen can use the daybed. I'll have someone move your belongings tomorrow. You've already furnished a room for a child you've never met. The implications of that planning made my skin crawl. I'm thorough. He checked his watch. Patek Philippe, I noticed. Probably worth more than most people made in a year. It's late. Dante will bring Sophia here in the morning. For tonight, try to rest. Just like that? You kidnap us and expect me to sleep peacefully? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. I haven't kidnapped anyone, Emma. You agreed to work for me. This is a term of your employment. If you'd prefer, I can arrange for you to stay in your apartment without my protection. See how long it takes for the people Jake Morrison betrayed to find you." The threat hung in the air between us, unspoken, but crystal clear. Fine. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the apartment's perfect climate control. But I need to get clothes, Sophia's medication, her stuffed rabbit. She can't sleep without it. Give Dante a list. He'll retrieve everything tonight. Lorenzo moved toward the door, then paused. "Emma, don't try to leave. The building has excellent security, and my men have strict instructions about your whereabouts. For your own safety, of course. Of course." A prison with Egyptian cotton sheets was still a prison. After he left, I explored my new cage. The closet held clothes in my exact size. Several days' worth of outfits ranging from casual to formal, all expensive, all in styles that somehow seemed to know my taste. The dresser contained new undergarments, still in packaging. The bathroom was stocked with high-end toiletries, and hanging on the back of the door was a plush robe softer than anything I'd ever touched. Lorenzo had prepared this room before ever meeting me, had known, somehow, that I would end up here. I texted Dante the list with shaking hands, then called Mrs. Chen. "Emma?" Her voice was worried. "It's almost 11. Is everything okay? I need you to do something for me." I switched to Mandarin, irrational paranoia making me wonder if Lorenzo had the room bugged. "Tomorrow morning, someone named Dante will come for Sophia. He'll bring her to a new address. I need you to trust me that this is necessary." Silence. Then, "You're in deeper trouble than I thought." "Yes." "But you and Sophia will be safe?" I looked around the luxurious room, thought about the armed guards, the reinforced vehicles, Lorenzo's cold promise of protection. "I think so, in a way." "Then I'll bring her. But Emma, be careful. Men with this kind of power, they don't let go easily." I knew. God, I knew. Sleep was impossible. I lay in the enormous bed, still wearing the blue silk dress because I couldn't bear to put on the clothes Lorenzo had bought for me, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this penthouse, he was sleeping, or working, or doing whatever mob bosses did at midnight. The thought of him just rooms away made my pulse race with a confusing mixture of fear and something else I didn't want to examine. Around 3 a.m. I heard voices. I crept to my door, opening it a crack. "Don't care what excuse he has." Lorenzo's voice, cold and sharp as a blade. "If the shipment doesn't arrive by Friday, Mikhail will learn what happens when people disappoint me." "Boss, he says the ports are..." Then he should have planned better. "I'm not interested in problems, Dante. I'm interested in solutions." I closed the door silently, my heart hammering. This was my life now, listening to threats delivered in the darkness, translating words that could mean someone's death, living in luxury purchased with blood and fear. Morning came too quickly. I'd finally dozed off around 5, and woke to find someone had entered my room while I slept. There was a breakfast tray on the side table, coffee still steaming, and a note in sharp, masculine handwriting. "Wear the gray suit. Meeting at 10. LV." The presumption of it infuriated me almost as much as the fact that someone had been in my room while I was unconscious and vulnerable. I showered in the marble bathroom, using the expensive products because I had no choice, and dressed in the gray suit he'd specified. It fit perfectly, professional and elegant. In the mirror, I looked like someone else entirely, someone who belonged in penthouses and boardrooms, not struggling to make rent. Sophia arrived at 8:30, bursting through the door with Dante trailing behind, carrying bags of our belongings. "Mama!" She launched herself at me, and I caught her, breathing in her familiar scent. "Hey, baby, what do you think of our new place?" She looked around with wide eyes. "It's like a palace. Is this where we live now?" "For a while, yes. Why?" "Because your father was a thief and a traitor, and now we're paying his debts. Because Mama got a new job, remember? And this is closer to work." Dante cleared his throat. "Boss says to tell you the decorator is coming this afternoon, for the little one's room. Any preferences, you tell them." A decorator. For my 4-year-old daughter, the absurdity of it would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, her eyes taking in the penthouse with knowing suspicion. She pulled me aside while Sophia explored her new room with the wonder of a child who didn't understand we were living in a gilded cage. "This man," she said quietly in Mandarin. "He's dangerous?" "Very." "But he protects you?" "In his way." She studied my face, seeing more than I wanted to reveal. "Sometimes protection and possession look very similar, child. Make sure you know the difference." The meeting at 10 was in Lorenzo's office. A room I hadn't seen yet, all dark wood and leather and the smell of expensive cigars. He sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany, his attention on a laptop screen. He didn't look up when I entered. "Sit." I took the chair across from him, spine straight, hands folded. "How did Sophia react to the new accommodations?" he asked, still typing. "She thinks it's a palace. Good. Children adapt quickly." He finally looked at me, and I was struck again by the intensity of his gaze. "You, however, look like you're planning an escape. Would it work if I did?" "No." Simple. Honest. But I admire the impulse. It shows spirit. He closed the laptop. "This morning's meeting is with a Japanese businessman. He speaks English but prefers his native language for negotiations. Your job is to ensure nothing is lost in translation, including tone and implication. My Japanese isn't as strong as my other languages. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be accurate." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "He's testing me, seeing if I'm serious about expanding into the Pacific Rim. Your performance reflects on my competence." "No pressure, then." His lip twitched, almost a smile. "You're learning." The Japanese businessman, Tanaka-san, arrived precisely on time, accompanied by 2 associates who reminded me of Lorenzo's bodyguards. Silent, watchful, dangerous. The meeting was conducted in Lorenzo's dining room, over tea served in cups so delicate I could see light through them. Tanaka-san was in his 60s, his face a careful mask of politeness that revealed nothing. He and Lorenzo circled each other verbally, discussing shipping routes and profit margins, while I translated the nuances that the English words couldn't quite capture. "Vitale-san's reputation suggests a man of decisive action," Tanaka-san said in Japanese, and I caught the subtle emphasis that could mean either respect or warning. I relayed it to Lorenzo, adding quietly, "He's being deliberately ambiguous, testing your reaction." Lorenzo's expression didn't change. "Tell him I'm flattered he's heard of me, and that I respect a man who does his research before committing to a partnership." The dance continued for 2 hours. By the end, terms had been discussed, possibilities outlined, and another meeting scheduled for next month. Tanaka-san left with a bow that could have meant anything from respect to dismissal. "Well?" Lorenzo asked after they'd gone. "He's interested but cautious. He wants assurances about your political connections in California." "California?" Lorenzo frowned. "Why California specifically?" He didn't say explicitly, but I got the impression he's concerned about port authorities. He mentioned unexpected difficulties another associate had in San Francisco. Lorenzo was quiet for a moment, his mind clearly working through implications I couldn't see. "Good. That's exactly the kind of detail I need. You're more observant than I expected." "Is that a compliment?" "An acknowledgement." He checked his watch. "You have the afternoon free. The decorator will need your input on Sophia's room. Tomorrow we have a conference call with associates in Buenos Aires. Your Spanish is fluent?" "Yes." "Good. Dismissed." I stood, started toward the door, then turned back. "Lorenzo." He looked up, surprise flickering across his face at my use of his first name. "Why are you really doing this? You could have hired any translator. Why specifically me?" He leaned back in his chair, studying me with that unreadable expression. "Because you're untraceable. No connections to my world, no loyalty to any of my rivals. Because you're desperate enough to be reliable and smart enough to be useful. And because..." He paused, something dark moving behind his eyes. "Your daughter's father took something from me. Having his daughter under my roof, his woman working for me, is a particular kind of justice." The possessive way he said his woman made my stomach twist. "I'm not his woman. I'm not anyone's woman." "No." Lorenzo stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. "Then what are you, Emma Rossi?" He was close now, too close, his cologne wrapping around me. I forced myself not to step back, not to show fear. I'm a mother doing what she has to do to protect her child. Yes, he murmured. That's exactly what you are. Remember that, when you're tempted to see me as the enemy. Everything I'm doing, the security, the accommodations, the resources, it's all ensuring Sophia's safety. I'm the only thing standing between her and the people who would hurt her to get to Jake Morrison. You're also the reason she's in danger in the first place. Am I? His hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw in an echo of last night's touch. Or is her father the reason? I'm simply managing the consequences of his choices. I pulled away, my skin burning where he'd touched me. Is there anything else you need from me today? Not today. He returned to his desk, the moment broken. But Emma, get used to this, to me, to this life, because you're here for the long term, and resistance will only make you miserable. I left without responding, my hands shaking, my mind racing. In Sophia's room, a decorator was showing Mrs. Chen fabric swatches and paint samples. My daughter sat in the middle of the chaos, pointing at colors with the unself-conscious joy of a child who thought this was all an adventure. Mama, can I have butterflies on the walls? The lady says she can paint them. I knelt beside her, smoothing her curls. Whatever you want, baby. Whatever she wanted. In this cage we couldn't leave, this beautiful, terrible cage that smelled like expensive cologne and tasted like fear and something else, something I refused to name. Mrs. Chen caught my eye over Sophia's head. Her expression said what she didn't speak aloud. Be careful. This man owns you now. I knew. God help me. I knew. 3 weeks passed in a blur of translations, meetings, and the strange domesticity of living in Lorenzo's penthouse. Sophia had adapted with the resilience of childhood, delighting in her butterfly-painted walls and the endless supply of toys that appeared as if by magic. Mrs. Chen came daily, her presence the only anchor to our old life, though even she had begun to soften toward our new circumstances, probably because Sophia had never looked healthier. Her asthma controlled by medications we could now afford without question. I, however, couldn't adapt. Every morning I woke in Egyptian cotton sheets feeling like an imposter. Every evening I sat across from Lorenzo at dinner. He'd insisted on the routine, claiming Sophia needed stability, and felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. He was always watching me, assessing, calculating. But lately there was something else in those dark eyes. Something that made my pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with fear. Mama, Mr. Lorenzo said I could get a puppy, Sophia announced one evening, bouncing into the living room where I was reviewing documents for tomorrow's meeting. I looked up sharply. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. I said we could discuss it, he corrected mildly. You promised. Sophia's lower lip trembled. Sophia, go wash up for dinner, I said, my voice tight. She huffed but obeyed, leaving Lorenzo and me alone. I stood, documents forgotten, anger finally overriding caution. You can't promise her things without asking me first. I didn't promise. I said we'd discuss it. She's 4. She doesn't understand that distinction. I crossed my arms. You're not her father. You don't get to make decisions about her. Something flickered in his expression, hurt, maybe, or offense. I'm aware I'm not her father. Her actual father abandoned her. I'm simply trying to give her a normal childhood. And nothing about this is normal! The words burst out, 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. We're living in a mobster's penthouse, surrounded by armed guards, and I'm translating conversations about smuggling and territory disputes. Don't pretend this is normal. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He moved closer, and I held my ground even as my instincts screamed to retreat. You think I don't know this isn't normal? You think I wanted this life for myself? His voice was low, dangerous. But it's the life I have, the life I was born into, and now it's your life too, so you can either accept it or make yourself miserable fighting it. I didn't choose this. No. Your daughter's father chose it for you when he stole from me. His hand shot out, gripping my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. But I'm giving you something he never did. Security. Protection. A future. The least you can do is stop treating me like a monster. Let go of me. Make me. We stared at each other, the air crackling with tension that had been building for weeks. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt my breath catch. For one insane moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. For one more insane moment, I wanted him to. Then Sophia called from the hallway, "Mama, I'm hungry," and the spell broke. Lorenzo released me, stepping back. "We'll discuss the dog later, when you're capable of being rational." He left before I could respond, leaving me shaking with adrenaline and confusion, and something that felt dangerously like desire. Dante appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. "Boss wants you to know there's a situation tomorrow. Russians coming for negotiation. It might get intense." "Intense how?" "Just keep translating exactly what they say, no matter what." He shifted uncomfortably. "And stay close to boss. These particular Russians, they don't respect women. Boss will make sure they respect you, but you need to let him." The next morning, I dressed with unusual care, choosing a severe black suit that made me look older, more professional. I pulled my hair into a tight bun and wore minimal makeup. Armor of a kind. The Russians arrived at noon, 3 men who filled the penthouse with the smell of cheap cologne and barely contained violence. Their leader, Alexei, was massive, with a shaved head and cold blue eyes that assessed me like I was a piece of meat. "This is translator?" he said in Russian, ignoring Lorenzo entirely. "Pretty thing. She any good or just decoration?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Lorenzo's hand landed on my lower back. A warning and a claim. "Ms. Rossi is the best translator in New York," Lorenzo said in English, "and she's under my protection. I trust that's understood." Alexei's smile was ugly. "Of course. Vitale protects his pets. We understand." The meeting deteriorated from there. They were discussing a shipment of something. The words they used were vague, deliberately coded. But the underlying tension was about territory and respect. Alexei kept making comments in Russian, sexual and degrading, assuming I wouldn't translate them. I did. Every word. Lorenzo's expression grew colder with each translation, his hand on my back tightening until I could feel the heat of his palm through my jacket. When Alexei made a particularly crude suggestion about what I might do to sweeten the deal, Lorenzo stood abruptly. "Get out." "We're not finished negotiating," Alexei protested. "Yes, we are. You've disrespected my employee, which means you've disrespected me. The deal is off." Lorenzo's voice was ice. "Dante will show you out." Alexei's face reddened. He said something in Russian that made my blood run cold. A threat against Lorenzo's life, detailed and specific. I translated it without thinking, my voice shaking. Lorenzo smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. "Tell him," he said quietly, "that if he or any of his men come near me, my business, or anyone under my protection, they'll discover exactly why people fear the Vitale family, and tell him that includes you, Emma." I translated, my Russian flowing automatically even as my mind reeled. He'd included me in his protection. Publicly, in front of witnesses who would spread the word. Alexei left, his men trailing behind him, but not before spitting something about Lorenzo being pussy-whipped by his translator. The moment the door closed, Lorenzo rounded on me. "Why didn't you stop translating? When he started with the vulgar comments, you should have... You told me to translate exactly what people say, no matter what." I threw his words back at him. "That's what I did." "That's not..." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. "You shouldn't have had to hear that. Repeat that." "I'm not fragile, Lorenzo. I've heard worse working as a waitress." "That's not the point." His voice rose, rare loss of control. "You're under my protection now. That means something. That means people don't get to..." He stopped, jaw clenching. "Don't get to what? Treat me like what I am? A translator you're using to pay off a debt? Is that what you think this is?" He moved closer, backing me against his desk. "After 3 weeks, you still think I'm just using you? Aren't you?" His hands came up, framing my face, and I froze. "If I was just using you, Emma, I wouldn't have spent last night researching hypoallergenic dog breeds for your daughter. I wouldn't care that you can't sleep. Yes, I know you pace your room at 3 a.m. I wouldn't have..." He stopped himself, something raw in his expression. "Wouldn't have what?" "Nothing. It doesn't matter." He released me, turning away. "Take the rest of the day off. Spend it with Sophia. Lorenzo, Go, Emma. Before I say something we'll both regret. I went, my mind spinning, my skin still burning where he'd touched me. That evening, I found Sophia in the living room with Lorenzo. They were sitting on the floor, looking at a tablet showing pictures of puppies. My daughter was curled against his side like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Lorenzo, dangerous, violent Lorenzo Vitale, was patiently explaining the differences between breeds. This one's a Havanese, he was saying. They're small, good with kids, and they don't shed much. But I want a big dog, like the one in my book, Sophia protested. Big dogs need lots of space and exercise, maybe when you're older. He looked up, saw me watching. Something vulnerable crossed his face before his mask slammed back into place. We were just looking. I can see that. Sophia bounded over to me. Mama, did you know Mr. Lorenzo had a dog when he was little? A big one named Bruno. I didn't know that, I said softly, looking at Lorenzo. He stood, brushing off his slacks. A long time ago. Different life. He headed toward his office, then paused. Emma, thank you. For today, for not backing down with the Russians. After he'd gone, Mrs. Chen emerged from the kitchen where she'd been preparing dinner. That man, she said in Mandarin, is falling for you. Don't be ridiculous. He's my employer. Employers don't look at employees the way he looks at you, like you're water and he's dying of thirst. She touched my arm gently. Question is, child, are you falling for him? I wanted to deny it, wanted to say it was impossible, that he was a criminal, that this was all just Stockholm Syndrome or survival instinct, but I thought about the way he'd defended me today. The way he researched dog breeds for Sophia. The way his hand had trembled, just slightly, when he'd touched my face. I don't know, I whispered. God help me. I don't know. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I wandered into the kitchen for water and found Lorenzo already there, staring out the window with a glass of whiskey. Can't sleep either? I asked. He turned, unsurprised to see me. Bad habit. Too many years of watching my back. Dante said you were born into this life. My father was Vitale before me, his father before him. It's legacy written in blood. He took a sip of whiskey. I never had a choice, Emma, but you did. I took that from you. You gave me a choice. Work for you or struggle alone. That's not really a choice. That's coercion dressed up in pretty words. He set down his glass. Do you hate me for it? I should have said yes. Should have maintained that distance, that wall of resentment, but standing there in the darkness, seeing the exhaustion in his eyes, the loneliness he tried so hard to hide. I couldn't. No, I admitted. I should, but I don't. Why not? Because despite everything, you've kept your word. Sophia's healthy. We're safe. You've been... I struggled for the right word. Kind. In your way. Kind. He laughed, bitter. I'm many things, Emma. Kind isn't one of them. He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands finding my waist, pulling me against him. I'm a man who wants something he shouldn't have. Who looks at you and forgets every rule he's lived by. Who lies awake at night thinking about... He stopped, his forehead dropping to mine. Tell me to let you go. Tell me this is wrong. My hands had somehow found their way to his chest. I could feel his heart racing beneath my palms. It is wrong. Then why aren't you pulling away? Because I was tired of fighting, tired of pretending I didn't feel this pull between us. Tired of denying that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, Lorenzo Vitale had become more than my captor, more than my employer. I don't know, I breathed. He kissed me then, and it was nothing like I'd imagined, not brutal or claiming, but almost desperate, like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling it free from its bun, and I melted into him with a surrender that should have terrified me. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. This is a terrible idea, I said, probably the worst I've ever had. His thumb traced my swollen lips. But I can't. I don't want to fight this anymore. What are we doing, Lorenzo? I don't know. He kissed me again, softer this time. But I know I'm not letting you go. Not now, maybe not ever. And God help me, I didn't want him to. The morning after our kiss, I woke to find Lorenzo gone. A note on my nightstand in his sharp handwriting: had to handle something. Stay inside today. Please. LV. The please unsettled me more than any command could have. Sophia was already awake, having breakfast with Mrs. Chen in the kitchen. The older woman took one look at my face and knew. So it's happened, she said quietly in Mandarin, while Sophia was distracted with her pancakes. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The question now is what comes next. What came next arrived 3 hours later in the form of chaos. I was reviewing Spanish documents for an afternoon call when Dante burst through the door, his usual nervous energy replaced by something sharper: fear. You need to come with me. Now. He grabbed my arm, already pulling me toward the private elevator. What's happening? Where's Lorenzo? Boss is... There was an ambush. The Russians. Alexei didn't take yesterday well. Dante was moving fast, 2 more guards appearing to flank us. He's alive, but hurt, asking for you. My heart stopped. How bad? Bad enough. Hospital's too risky. Too many questions. We have a doctor at the safe house. The elevator doors opened to an underground garage I hadn't known existed. Mrs. Chen stays with Sophia. You come with me. The safe house was in Brooklyn, an unremarkable brownstone that hid a fortress behind its weathered facade. Dante rushed me through security checkpoints, past grim-faced men with weapons, into a bedroom that had been converted into a makeshift surgical suite. Lorenzo lay on the bed, his white shirt soaked with blood, his face pale but conscious. A doctor worked over his shoulder, extracting what looked like a bullet. When Lorenzo saw me, something like relief washed over his features. You came, he said, his voice strained. Of course I came. You idiot! What were you thinking, going after Alexei without backup? I had backup. Wasn't enough. He winced as the doctor probed deeper. He knew I'd come. Set a trap. Would have worked too, except... He broke off, gritting his teeth. Except what? Except I was distracted thinking about you instead of paying attention. His hand shot out, grabbing mine. Couldn't stop thinking about last night. About... Boss, you need to stay still, the doctor warned. But Lorenzo's eyes stayed locked on mine. I need to tell you something. In case... Don't. I squeezed his hand hard. Don't you dare finish that sentence. You're going to be fine. Emma. No. Listen to me, Lorenzo Vitale. You don't get to kiss me like that and then die on me. You don't get to make Sophia care about you, make me care about you, and then leave. So you're going to shut up and let the doctor work. And then you're going to heal, because we're not finished. Do you understand? A ghost of his usual arrogant smile appeared. Bossy. You have no idea. I brushed the hair back from his forehead, my hand shaking. Now be quiet, and let them help you. The bullet removal took 40 minutes. I stayed the entire time, holding his hand while he fought not to show pain, whispering to him in Italian when it got bad. Nonsense, really. Anything to keep him focused on my voice instead of the agony. When it was finally over, the doctor bandaged him up and stepped back. He needs rest. No stress, no movement. The bullet missed anything vital, but he lost a lot of blood. I'll make sure he rests, I promised. After the doctor left, Lorenzo's grip on my hand tightened. The Russians. This isn't over. Alexei will come after everyone connected to me. That includes you and Sophia. Then we'll increase security. No. His voice was firm despite his weakness. I'm ending this. Tonight. Dante's already making arrangements. But I need you to do something for me. Anything. If this goes wrong, if I don't come back, there's a lawyer. Documents. Everything's arranged. You and Sophia will be provided for. The penthouse, trust funds, protection. You'll be safe. Horror flooded through me. What are you planning? A meeting. Neutral ground. But with Alexei, neutral ground doesn't exist. He tried to sit up, grimaced. I'm going to offer him a deal. Territory concessions in exchange for leaving my people alone. He'll probably refuse. And then what? Then it ends the way these things always end. His eyes met mine, dark and honest, with blood. No, you're not going anywhere. You're injured. You can barely move. Which is why it has to be tonight. He'll expect me to wait, to recover. Won't see it coming. Lorenzo cupped my face with his free hand. This is what I am, Emma, what I've always been. A man who solves problems with violence because it's the only language people like Alexei understand. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not in my world. He pulled me down, kissed me softly despite the pain it clearly caused him. But I want you to know, these past 3 weeks with you and Sophia, it's been the closest I've ever come to feeling normal. To feeling like maybe there was something more than this endless cycle of violence and revenge. Lorenzo, let me finish, please. His thumb wiped away tears I didn't realize I was shedding. I don't regret bringing you here. I should. It was selfish, keeping you when I should have let you go. But I can't regret it, because for the first time in my life, I had something worth protecting beyond money and power. I had what? You, Sophia, a family almost, or the shadow of one. His voice broke slightly. So I'm going to end this threat, and then, if I survive, I'm going to give you a choice. A real one this time. What choice? Stay with me. Not because of Jake's debt. That's forgiven. Paid in full. Not because you're trapped or coerced. But because you want to. Because maybe you feel something for me that isn't just fear or obligation. His eyes searched mine. Or go. I'll set you up anywhere in the world. New identity, enough money to live comfortably, protection from a distance. Whatever you choose, you'll be free. My heart was breaking and soaring simultaneously, and if I choose to stay, then I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of it. Of you. He smiled sadly, though I'm not sure that's possible for someone like me. Someone like you who researches hypoallergenic dogs for little girls, who holds my hand while getting a bullet removed. Who's trying to protect people he could have just eliminated? I leaned my forehead against his. You're not as irredeemable as you think, Lorenzo. Maybe. Or maybe you just bring out something better in me. He kissed me again. Will you wait for me? Tonight? While I handle this? Do I have a choice? Always. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You always have a choice now. That evening I watched from the penthouse window as Lorenzo left in an armored SUV, Dante and 6 heavily armed men surrounding him. He'd changed into a fresh suit, hiding the bandages beneath expensive fabric, and moved with the practiced ease of a man accustomed to pushing through pain. Mrs. Chen had taken Sophia to her room for a movie, giving me space to pace and worry. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept checking my phone, willing it to ring with news. At 11 p.m., it finally did. Dante's number. It's done, he said without preamble. Alexei accepted the deal. Boss is on his way back. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. He's okay? Bleeding through the bandages, and probably needs more stitches, but alive. Stubborn bastard wouldn't leave until everything was signed and witnessed. There was something like affection in Dante's voice. He's different with you around, you know. More human. Dante, thank you for keeping him safe. I didn't do it for him. Did it because he's happy for the first time since I've known him. And that's because of you and the little one. So don't break his heart, yeah? Man survived bullets and bombs, but I don't think he'd survive that. Lorenzo came through the door 20 minutes later, looking pale and exhausted but whole. I met him in the foyer, checking him over with frantic hands. I'm fine, he murmured, catching my hands. It's over. Alexei agreed to the concessions. We have peace. At what cost? Territory I didn't care about. Money I have plenty of. Nothing that matters compared to. He pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. God, I was terrified. Not of dying, but of never seeing you again. Never knowing if you'd choose to stay. You really meant it? About giving me a choice? Every word. He pulled back to look at me. Jake's debt is paid. You're free to go, Emma. I'll set you up anywhere you want. Make sure you and Sophia have everything you need. No strings. No obligations. Just... His voice cracked. Just know that if you go, you take my heart with you. I looked at this man. this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly gentle man who'd turned my life upside down, who'd protected my daughter, defended my honor, and somehow made me fall in love with him despite every logical reason not to. "What if I don't want to go?" I whispered. Hope flared in his eyes, desperate and vulnerable. "Then don't. Stay, build a life here with me. Let me be—" He hesitated. "Let me try to be what Sophia needs. What you need. I know I'm not. I can never be normal, but I swear to you, I'll protect you both with everything I have. I need to know something first." I placed my hand over his heart, feeling it race. "Do you love me? Really love me, not just want me or need me, but love me, Emma?" He covered my hand with his. "I fell in love with you the night you sat at my table, terrified but defiant, translating insults without flinching. I fell harder watching you with Sophia, seeing the fierce way you love her. And I fell completely when you held my hand today and told me I didn't get to die on you." His other hand cupped my face. "So yes, I love you, completely, terrifyingly, in a way I didn't think I was capable of. Then I'm staying." The words came easily, feeling right in a way nothing had since this whole nightmare began. Not because I'm trapped or scared or obligated, but because somehow, impossibly, I love you too. He kissed me then, deeply and thoroughly, pouring weeks of wanting and fear and hope into it. When we finally broke apart, we were both crying. "I'm still going to make mistakes," he warned. "I'm going to be overprotective and controlling sometimes because that's how I keep people safe. And there will be parts of my business you can't know about, can't be involved in, I know. And I'm still going to challenge you and refuse to be intimidated and probably drive you crazy with my stubbornness." "Good." He smiled, real and warm and utterly transformed. "I wouldn't want you any other way." 3 months later, I stood in Sophia's room, newly expanded and redecorated again to accommodate the Havanese puppy Lorenzo had surprised her with, watching my daughter play with the dog she'd named Bruno, after Lorenzo's childhood pet. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, moving easier now that his shoulder had fully healed. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my head. "Happy?" he murmured. Surprisingly, yes, I leaned back into him, though I never imagined this would be my life. Regretting it? Not even a little. I turned in his arms. "You're really okay with this? With instant fatherhood and a 4-year-old who thinks you hung the moon?" "She's easy to love. Just like her mother." He kissed my temple. "Besides, I've been thinking, maybe it's time to make this official." My heart stuttered. "Official how?" He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that took my breath away, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, elegant and understated and perfect. "Marry me," he said simply. "Not because of debts or obligation, but because I love you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. Because I want to officially be Sophia's father and give her siblings if you want them. Because you've made my life mean something beyond power and violence. Lorenzo, I know it's fast. I know this whole situation has been insane from the start, but I've never been more certain of anything. You're it for me, Emma. The end of my searching. Say yes." I thought about the terrified woman who'd walked into that restaurant 3 months ago, invisible and struggling. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The fear, the confusion, the gradual transformation from captive to partner to something more. "Yes," I breathed, watching his face transform with joy. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on my finger, then kissed me while Sophia cheered in the background, not fully understanding but catching our happiness like it was contagious. That night, after Sophia was asleep, and we were alone in the darkness of our shared bedroom, I'd moved into his room 2 weeks ago. Lorenzo held me close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing past what I am to who I could be. For giving me a reason to be better. For loving me despite everything." He kissed my shoulder. "I know I don't deserve you, but I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway." "Good," I murmured, tangling my fingers with his. because I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together now. Whatever comes. Whatever comes, he echoed. I love you, Emma Rossi, soon to be Emma Vitale. I love you too. Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Inside, wrapped in Lorenzo's arms with our daughter sleeping safely down the hall and a future I'd never imagined stretching before us, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt home. Not in the penthouse with its expensive furniture and bulletproof windows. Not in the security or the luxury or the protection, but in him. In us. In the family we'd built from danger and desperation and, against all odds, love. The girl who'd spilled wine on a tablecloth didn't exist anymore. In her place was a woman who'd found strength in vulnerability, love in captivity, and home in the arms of a man who'd started as her captor and become her salvation. And as Lorenzo's breathing evened into sleep beside me, his arms still wrapped protectively around me, I smiled into the darkness. This was my life now. Imperfect, unconventional, sometimes dangerous, but utterly, completely mine, and I wouldn't change a single thing.